Audio anomalies are known to occur by technical issues with radio frequencies or satellite signals. But what if some of these anomalies are interferences from the dead? Welcome to the Why Files, where we explore theories, history, and the why of paranormal phenomena. And this is our very first episode. My name is Bryce.
My name's Mariah.
Awesome. All right, we got this thing kicked off finally. It's taken a while, but we're here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were. This has been kind of in the making for a while, and we took a trip out to New Mexico and up through Colorado, and Mariah had this amazing epiphany for a podcast.
Is this where I talk about it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we wanted to find a podcast while we were driving that... Oh, also, by the way, am I supposed to look here or here?
I think just look at me. I was trying to figure that out also. I think you should just... I think we're having a conversation. These are just watching us.
Okay. So we wanted to find a podcast that where people gave their own personal accounts of their ghost stories. Mm-hmm. Not somebody reading ghost stories that were sent in, and not just overly cheesy. And we couldn't find any podcasts like that.
Yeah, and they do exist. We have since discovered some decent podcasts, and there's some of them out there that we really enjoyed. But on this trip specifically, I don't think we were having much luck finding any.
No, I just wanted a paranormal podcast that talked about either real ghost stories from people that experienced them, or I just wanted people to look into haunted locations and kind of just give their accounts with that without being overly cheesy. And I'm sure they're out there. Jim Harold's Campfire seems pretty good.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah, we've kind of have dived into that one, and it has some really great content. So.
Yeah, but it seems like it's kind of like a dime a dozen. It seems like most of them we just kind of were just nah. So we decided to make our own. Because we have a lot of friends and stuff that have told us scary stories.
Yeah, well, I think this is it was kind of revealed to me at least that this is a very passive hobby that we both shared, that we don't really ever we discuss it, but not in a serious way. Mm-hmm. We both love good ghost stories. We both love horror films. We both love weird, unexplained videos and just content about that. And so it was kind of revealed to me whenever she thought of doing this podcast, this is something that we both do seem to have a background passion for, if you can call it that. So It seems kind of a natural fit to me, but
yeah.
So perfect. Here we are. And so this first episode, we're coming in hot and heavy. I came in with some dense notes because I didn't really know what to do for the first episode. I wasn't really sure what direction to take it, and this is something I'm probably just going to change as it continues. I think it's just one of these things that you can give it the room it needs to sort of grow and evolve into its own thing. So, but today, as the title suggests, we are talking about Thomas Edison's spirit phone and audio anomalies. Mm-hmm. So. It's kind of a deep one there, but Mariah, have you ever encountered audio anomalies?
Not really. I don't think. I mean, unless, what do you call whenever you're thinking that the radio is going to play a song, and then you turn on your car and the radio is playing the same song that was just in your head. And sometimes it's at the exact same spot that you were at in your head.
Really?
Does that have to do with audio anomalies?
No, but I think that's a whole thing unto itself.
That's just me being psychic.
I think Mariah does. She's awesome because Mariah thinks that she's psychic.
Mildly psychic.
I think you're mildly psychic. I think you are sensitive. I think you're a sensitive being.
But only psychic in areas that have absolutely no value, like with puzzle pieces and car radios and stuff like that. That's the only thing I'm really psychic about.
Oh, that's perfect.
Also, no, I think that's it. I think those are the only two things.
Okay, so I thought, the phrase audio anomaly is kind of interesting. When I think of the phrase audio anomaly, I usually think of like interference from signals or satellites from space. Like whenever, you read these articles about scientists encountering an audio anomaly, signals from space, weird stuff like that, and it actually turns out to be a microwave in the laboratory. This was a real story where scientists were doing their science stuff and sending out signals into space and retrieving signals, and they retrieved a weird sound, like a weird hum or like a signal that was kind of like, whoa, what's that? And it kind of piqued their interest, like, what, we're getting some feedback. What is this?
From aliens?
Turned out it was just the microwave. It was just the microwave.
Or aliens pinning it on the microwave.
Okay, see, this is the difference between you and me.
Okay, so I guess we should explain, why we call it the Y files.
Well, I kind of did at the opening, but yeah.
Well, no, the name itself.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so...
Which was your idea?
Yeah, so if you've seen the X-Files, or even if you haven't, there's Scully and there's Mulder. And Mulder is the one who is the believer. Mm-hmm. Like, he believes in aliens. He believes in all of the unexplained things. He's just more like open to that. Scully is the realist,
okay,
the more logical thinker, and she's the one that's always like, no, I don't think so. It's probably there's a reasonable explanation for this. So if you can't already guess, Bryce is Scully.
Okay.
And I am Mulder.
So I'm skeptical Scully.
Yes.
And you are
Magnificent Mulder.
Okay, Magnificent Mulder. Got it. Those are our code names for this podcast. So back to audio anomalies. I wanted to focus that on this episode because we have had extensive discussions about spirit boxes, or also known as ghost boxes, or also known as, since I've learned, Frank's ghost box. And it's basically a contraption. It's a, quote, broken radio. But it switches frantically between FM and AM frequencies and picks out snippets and uses that as a way for spirits to communicate with people. Like on the videos that we see. Yeah, exactly. And I guess the idea is that spirits use these frequencies in some way or another. They manipulate them to their fashion to communicate with people who are listening to them. Other than that, it's a really freaky sounding machine because it's just like, and that's something that made it lose its credibility with me because I'm like, if it sounds terrifying by default, I just don't really, I think it's more for like theatrics than it is for utility, but I might have changed my mind.
But isn't isn't that just switching from station to station?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I believe that's what it is. So, all right, let's dive in. So this is an example I pulled up out of Reddit. It's an audio anomaly. It's just a very simple one. This is not a highly rated or a highly voted video, but it's something that I thought was interesting and a good example of what could be an audio anomaly. So I'm going to skip ahead about 20 seconds into the video, and I'll play it.
I can't hear you. Okay. I've called Father right out front of Ray Thomas Funeral Home. He has not answered. But this has.
So I'm just going to pause it there to give some context to the people who are not watching the video but listening. But it's basically, we're watching a dash cam of this guy, and it's not showing him. It's just looking out of his car. But he is calling someone, and he's encountered this weird sounds, these weird sounds that you're hearing. So this is an example of an audio anomaly. This is something that went wrong with his cell phone or maybe a signal. Something just occurs. And this has happened to me in my personal life, and I don't usually think too much about it. But let's keep watching. I don't know who he's calling. It sounds like to me he's calling a realtor or something like that.
And the call has ended. Okay. So this is the house I'm considering purchasing. And I may have to take on the fact that It might be horrifically haunted. There we go. He might actually be calling back. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Your phone just called us and was making all kinds of weird noises.
Yeah, yours was making weird noises to me too.
Oh, okay. At first I thought you were breathing funny. I was like, Kevin? Kevin?
Wait, were you not breathing either?
No!
Okay, that's a good place to stop it. But so basically, it seems like both of the callers encountered weird noises that to them sounded like breathing. It did sound kind of weird. It was more like a, just
Well, it sounds like whenever somebody answers their cell phone and it's still in their pocket.
yeah, that might have happened. But she was also on the other end,
Yeah.
and she was encountering the same thing. But regardless, I'm not calling this a paranormal event or trying to shed light on this specific thing. This is just an example of an audio anomaly and what you might have encountered at some point in your life and not really thought too much about. It's nothing crazy, but here's something that I found to be absolutely freaky.
Ahora sí, dale. La estación no se ha cambiado, es la misma estación. Ahí vamos. Por allá está la cruz. Dale lento, más lento, más lento.
And the context that I've heard about this video before is that there was this is somewhere in Mexico. And a story goes that a little girl had died and that they had put up like a little roadside memorial cross there and all of that. Mm-hmm. And some people, I think it's like on an AM radio station, whenever they pass right by it, mm-hmm. they pick up an entirely new sound. That's not what seems to be like classical music. It turns into the sound of ambulance sirens. It's really eerie, but very freaky. Let's listen to it.
A la madre. ¿Dónde está la cruz? Dale.
So pretty jarring to listen to, honestly, because it's very loud. But I love that one because that's a real freaky instance of audio anomalies. And I don't know. Have you ever experienced anything weird like that?
No.
I haven't either.
I wish we knew what he was saying, though.
I wish I knew what he was saying also. I mean, our Spanish is kind of intermediate, so
Yeah.
if anyone wants to translate for us, let us know. Appreciate it. So what did you think about that video compared to that first one? Do you think that's something that you would consider like paranormal or?
Possibly, but I think it could also be explained by an actual siren going off at the time.
But I think there's multiple videos of that. Plus,
Are there multiple videos of that?
I swear, I should have dug deeper on this, but I swear I've seen a second video of that same instance.
I mean, I'm not saying I don't believe it. I'm just saying it's one of those things that could be explained.
Let's not call it paranormal. How about we put that in the eerie category?
Okay.
Eerie audio anomaly.
Yeah.
Okay. So how does this relate all to Thomas Edison? That's what I'm trying to get to. Is Thomas Edison, during his time, he was America's most reputable inventor, creator, thinker. The guy was smart. That's the point I'm trying to make, is throughout his lifetime, he was a credible figure, and he said something incredibly interesting about contacting the spirit realm. And that's what I wanted to talk about.
And that makes sense. I just will say, interject side note,
Okay.
that Thomas Edison is revered as a great American inventor.
Yes.
And his incandescent bulb is considered one of the most important inventions of the modern world. But
Okay.
he's not a lone genius, basically. I don't want to read right off this because that's kind of like, copywriting. I don't want to do that, or plagiarizing. But
I'm doing that. I'm just sourcing where my material comes from.
U.S. News. So basically, what?
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, U.S. News.
U.S. News.
I'm
Got
not
it.
plagiarizing. Okay, so I'm just saying, credible, reputable. He was known as the inventor of the light bulb,
Right.
but I don't think he was.
Okay, but can we both come to agree that during his lifetime, people did look to him as a credible person. He was a smart individual.
Yes. And also, I'm sure a lot of people that have invented things have been inspired, or they've built off of
Sure.
I don't know if that's exactly. I haven't looked a whole lot into it. I just know that it's kind of common knowledge that he shouldn't get the full credit for the light bulb.
Right.
But that has nothing to do with what you're talking about. So
It
just
doesn't.
go ahead.
It doesn't. It has nothing to do. But
Okay.
I appreciate that. Okay. So, so let's put us into history here. Back in 1920, Thomas Edison talked about inventing a spirit phone to contact personalities that were no longer with us, the dead. So I'm going to read a little bit of the snippet that I got from Wikipedia. As the spiritualist religious movement became prominent in the 1840s through the 1940s with a distinguishing belief that the spirits of the dead can be contacted by mediums, new technologies of the era, including photography, were employed by spiritualists in an effort to demonstrate contact with a spirit world. So popular were such ideas that Thomas Edison was asked in an interview with Scientific American to comment on the possibility of using his inventions to communicate with spirits. You know what he said? He replied that if the spirits were only capable of subtle influences, a sensitive recording device would provide a better chance of spirit communication than the table tipping and Ouija boards mediums employed at the time.
Okay, so give me the TLDR version.
So basically, he was saying through new technological mediums like through film, through phonograms, through recording devices that could record, sights and sounds, he was saying that if there is a possibility of communicating with the dead, that it would be more so possible with these new technological mediums than seances and Ouija boards, which were the more prominent ways of contacting the dead throughout the spiritualist movement up until that point. So this brings us to 1920, where he is quoted on an invention that he says he's creating called the spirit phone, specifically designed to contact the dead. So why would this incredibly reputable, incredible American inventor go out on such a limb to say that he was creating a device to contact the dead unless he really thought he could do it? So like I was saying, I have some notes here. I'm just going to read. If it sounds like I'm reading, it's because I am. I took a lot of notes here, and I just want to be able to tell the full backstory as clear as I can. Thomas Edison, America's greatest inventor. He developed many devices in fields such as electric power generation, mass communication, sound recording, and motion pictures. Edison's work is responsible for the advanced microphone technology we're using today right now, which started with the phonograph in 1877. Pretty interesting, huh? This microphone right here, Edison, baby. That's it. Edison's inventions have lived on, of course, changing from legacy mediums like tape, film, and Edison bulbs to new mediums like MP3s, digital video, and trendy Edison bulbs. See what I did there?
Those are coming back in style.
They are coming back. We have some. Inefficient, but aesthetic. Going forward.
But he didn't invent it.
Okay.
So we shouldn't even call him the Edison bulb.
Okay, you're a radical. This guy was smart, but spiritualism was alive and well in the 1920s, and many people were concerned with the ability to speak with the dead, much like they were concerned with the technology behind telegraphs and air flight. I think that's such a good point to make. People were just interested in these possibilities. They were seeing new ground being broken in all other ways. They thought maybe it is possible. Maybe this is an area. Maybe there is a psychic phenomenon that is real that we don't have the technology to perceive yet. Mm-hmm. And so through these inventions, I could definitely put myself in these people's shoes and thinking like, any day now, we're going to talk to dead people. I mean, we just flew a plane the other day. Why can't we talk to the dead the next day, you know? Mm-hmm. What a wild time for technological advancement. So, and in more context, Edison was kind of older at this time. I mean, he was in the last decade of his life. I mean, of course, he didn't know that, but he was 73 years old. I believe he died at 84. So the 73-year-old Edison had apparently been working on a spirit phone that would let the living communicate with the dead. Quote, I have been at work for some time building an apparatus to see if it is possible for personalities which have left this earth to communicate with us. If this is ever accomplished, it will be accomplished not by any occult, mystifying, mysterious, or weird means, such as are employed by so-called mediums, but by scientific methods. Now, there's a level of appreciation that I have for him in saying this, that he is approaching this with a scientific mind. He's approaching this with a scientific method. That is such an interesting perspective, and that's the one that you don't often hear about whenever you do talk about the occult and you talk about the paranormal and the unknown. It's not so often that you get this kind of scientific mind to go forward and tackle something so headstrong, you know? A lot of times it's a lot of other unknown ways of trying to communicate with the dead, you know? A lot of like, I guess, like say in a Ouija board, no matter how freaky they are, I don't know if you could ever 100% know that it's working, you know? Even if you were doing it, if you were certain, there would still be room for me in my mind that like psychologically I was subconsciously, you know, edging, pushing the whatever you call it, the thing around, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, that's part of that whole thing, but also just the unexplained experiences that happen while people are using them too.
The aftermath of them, yeah. I mean,
not even just like the aftermath, but what happens during.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about that, and
I haven't ever played with one though because I'm too scared.
We're too scared. We're not going to. Okay, I'm almost wrapped up here.
Is the whole okay? So after you finish, I do want to talk about the spirit phone.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so I'll go into more detail. So anyway, Edison's own beliefs allowed for both faith and science, which this is a kind of a side note, and I thought it was interesting to add that he was, you know, he believed he had room in his life for spiritualism. You know, that's what I think is so fascinating, is that a man of so many technological advancements, that he left room in his life for spiritualism to exist, even though he didn't seem like a godly person. You know what I mean? He wasn't so much a God-fearing man. He more so seemed like he feared nature. He represented, in his mind, in his own words, what I've read, his version of God was nature with a capital N. You know, so that's sort of his spirituality, and that's where he's coming from in his mind, and I thought that was important to note. Quote, I can no more doubt the existence of intelligence that is running things than I do the existence of myself, with absolute positiveness that some of our most generally accepted notions on the subject are utterly untenable and ridiculous. That last one kind of lost me, I'm not going to lie. Edison believed that all living bodies are composed of myriads and myriads of infinitesimally. Okay, can you read this for me? It starts right here. Can you read that?
Edison believed that all living bodies are composed of myriads and myriads of infinitesimally small individuals, each in itself a unit of life, and that those units, which worked in swarms, were everlasting. Now,
I've read more about what his belief was on this, and I think that was the generalization of atoms. I think that's what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
If these particles existed, he reasoned, they could collect together in the ether around us. Possibly, they could be amplified by his device, like a human voice could be amplified and recorded by a phonograph. I mean, what a mind-blowing thought, right?
Wait, make that more simple. What does that mean?
So basically, he was saying that if these particles that made up a person, like atoms, if they could collect in the ether, in the area around us, in the room in which we're in right now, I say if the particles of what was once a person could collect and produce a voice, and it would be so subtle that only a device like a phonograph would be sensitive enough to receive that. That's kind of what I'm picking up from it. I think he's saying that once someone dies, that they don't really leave. They're just scattered into swarms of particles of what they were. But if those things could, I guess, come together and collect to produce some sort of energy, or in this case, a voice, that it would be very subtle, and that it could only be received and heard from sensitive devices like a phonograph. pretty interesting. So certain swarms, he theorized, did most of the thinking and directing, much like bosses or leaders do among humans. Quote, this theory would account for the fact that certain men and women have greater intellectuality, greater abilities, greater powers than others, he explained in a Forbes article. It would account, too, for differences in moral character, with the movement of swarms behind changes in a person's personality in the course of his or her lifetime. So, I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. He was a smart guy, but he was he had some thoughts, didn't he? And he seemed he was very freely. Here's something I want to take away from this, though, is how freely he's talking about this, how much he's discussing this in detail, right? The possibility of it all, right? Because we're going to come back to this later, and I'm going to make a bigger point out of this. The amount that he has talked about it in detail of and hypothesized of how it could work, how a dead person could be heard or seen through these new technologies, right? Mm-hmm. Kind of odd. If successful, Edison's electric ghost machine would be able to detect the personalities of the deceased, allowing them to relay messages from the spirit realm. But here's the kicker. The invention never came to fruition, even though Edison later told the New York Times that it was all a joke. So in 1926, this is 6 years after he mentions all this, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, hey, Edison, what happened to your spirit phone? Are you still doing that? He's like, oh, that was a big joke.
That's what he said, word for word?
There's not a direct quote on it, but it says that he told the New York Times that it was a joke. So that's kind of where it leaves us. It says, Edison later disclaimed the idea, telling the New York Times in 1926 that, quote, I really had nothing to tell him, but I hated to disappoint him, so I thought up this story about communicating with spirits, but it was all a joke. And him being the reporter, I imagine, in this case. So I'm guessing someone was like, hey, Edison, what are you working on nowadays? And this is an aged Edison. He's 73 years old. He's probably still competing with Tesla. When I don't know how long Tesla lived. He lived a good long while, didn't he? But I think I'm interpreting this as a flex on Tesla, if anything, right? Like maybe he was just flexing, like he was just saying like, oh yeah, like, oh, Tesla's doing, I'm making
Nikola
a spirit
Tesla
phone.
Doing something similar?
I'm not sure. I didn't look into that. He wasn't, no, I looked up to see if Nikola Tesla had any like ideas about this kind of thing, and it didn't seem like he really did.
Well, either it was a joke or he just was not successful and he wanted to pass it off as a joke. It's either one of those two things.
I think it's the latter. I mean, that's what I'm saying. You don't go 6 years later and say like, oh, that was a joke. With the amount of detail and quotes that he gave about his ideas on this, you know? Mm-hmm. I mean, the very small amount that he was even quoted on talking about it, it's like, dude, the guy thought so much more about it than what he was actually saying. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He must have spent a lot of time developing these ideas.
Yeah.
I think he really believed he could talk to the dead.
Or maybe he was just scared about maybe him being in like the later stages of his life and not being able to still be somewhat present in this world.
That's another thought I had. Yeah. I mean, that's the context, right? An aging Edison in the last decade of his life. You know, I know that he didn't know when he was going to die exactly, but you kind of get the feeling when you're, you know, around that age, and it's that time period, you know, when most people around you start dying of old age. Yeah. And I think maybe that was like some last big attempt, maybe for his legacy, maybe for him to justify that he's not leaving this world, you know, that he's still a part of everything and that he can be collecting himself in the ether to communicate with others. And that's a really beautiful thought.
His spirit is in every Edison light bulb.
I like that.
One atom of Edison in every Edison light bulb.
So, but it's an interesting thing to think about, right? I mean, the fact that he would talk so much about it and then just say it was all a joke, and you have to wonder why.
Yeah, but like, I don't think you don't need a phone or a spirit phone or any kind of technology to really like communicate with the dead. Like, I think, like, you know, like loved ones that have passed away, I think you can almost like send out a message to them. And I think on some level, I think that they receive it, you know?
Right.
And I think that it goes the other way too. I think that they can also send us messages or something like that, or signs.
Yeah.
There's like, you don't need to create like any kind of like technology because it's just something that's like a feeling or something that it's like almost on like a different wavelength.
Right. An undetectable wavelength,
Yeah.
something that can't be measured or felt truly, but maybe in times of silence, in times of vulnerability, in times of, I don't know, extreme emotion, maybe a part of yourself opens up and you can feel that and you can detect that, you know?
It's kind of like the same thing as like manifestations or whatever, like putting things out into the universe.
Oh, yeah.
Like even sometimes like saying things out loud can like bring those certain things to you.
Yeah, right.
So like, I don't know.
No, absolutely. And there's something to be said about words having power.
Yeah.
You know, having real power, having a real effect on your life. And I think in this case, Edison was maybe deeply concerned with his mortality, and this was a way of dealing with it. This was a way of him confronting his ending legacy, the ending of his life, and everything that he would be leaving behind. Truly beautiful. I think that was, I mean, when I started reading about this, it just kind of blew my mind about like all the implications of what he might have been going through, what he was thinking, and what if he was just joking. The thought of that itself is like crazy too. It's like, what if he just said stuff? Like, was he really someone who just said things all the time? Like, how often did this guy joke about things he was working on? Because he seemed like pretty serious about working on things to completion.
I think also the older you get, the less you care. So he could just probably have also just been like, yeah, whatever. I don't know. Like, maybe he's just like, I'm just going to mess with him.
Yeah, it could have been. It could have been all these things. The truth is, we don't know, and none of us know. But where does this leave us today? I talked earlier about how these legacy mediums in film and tape and Edison bulbs leading us to MP3s and digital video to trendy Edison bulbs. Where that leaves us now in terms of the spirit phone. It was never invented. It was never possible, maybe. But there have been attempts to communicate with the dead through audio frequencies. And is the spirit phone a dead-end thing, or did we see it come to fruition through Frank's ghost box, or also known as the spirit box? I don't know. It's kind of interesting, but I'll give you a little brief history over the spirit box if you want to hear it.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's this thing called the Spiricom. I think this was the predecessor of Frank's ghost box. So here it goes. In 1980, William O'Neill constructed an electronic audio device called the Spiricom. O'Neill claimed the device was built to specifications which he received psychically from George Mueller, a scientist who had died 6 years previously. That is my favorite detail ever.
Okay, so what was it?
So he created this thing called the Spiricom to talk to the dead, and he had instructions to build it psychically from his dead scientific partner, George Mueller. So basically, George Mueller's ghost was communicating with William O'Neill on how to build a Spiricom so that they could talk, right?
Yeah.
Which makes me like, that opens up a whole can of worms. It's like, oh, you know, like what other things are ghosts communicating us to figure out how to do? You know, like the first guy who was figuring out how to make like ravioli, you know, was a spirit communicating with that guy and saying like, hey, it's really good. Like, I know that dough is really good by itself, but if you put cheese inside of it, it's going to be a game changer, brother. And if only I knew that when I was alive. This is like a Stephanie Meyer situation too, because it reminds me of like what didn't she think of Twilight in a dream? Like she had a dream. She was inspired to write all this because she had a dream.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So that's kind of...
What's the Stephanie Meyer story? I'm not familiar.
That's it.
No. What is it? What's it about?
What do you mean?
Stephanie Meyer. Who is
Twilight?
that? Yeah. Tell that story.
What do you mean? It's just Twilight. So she found out, I believe she was inspired to write Twilight through a dream. So what I'm trying to say is William O'Neill had a Stephanie Meyers moment.
I'm asking you to give me the summary of Twilight.
Twilight
for
is,
those that haven't read it.
oh, it's awesome. It's like the coolest story ever. It's about where this super interesting girl, this super unique and interesting girl is in high school, and she moves from the desert to like beautiful northwest. Okay, Phoenix to northwest United States, and she makes
Forks, Washington.
Okay, and she does all of that, and then she meets a vampire, but she doesn't know he's a vampire.
Wow.
And he hates her, and he wants to kill her, but he for some reason is attracted by that, and
Why?
she's doubly attracted by him wanting to kill her.
Why does he want to kill her?
I don't know, because she smells weird. Or something like that. But I'm okay. That's as much as Twilight we're getting into. That's another episode. Okay. So back to the Spiricom. So William O'Neill had a Stephanie Meyers moment where he was told, maybe in his dreams, maybe by his dead partner, George Mueller, maybe this was his way of mourning George. He felt that George was communicating with him to tell him to build the Spiricom so that they could better communicate. That's a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. So, at a Washington, D.C. Press conference on April 6, 1982, O'Neill stated that he was able to hold two-way conversations with the spirit through the Spiricom device and provided the design specifications to researchers for free. That's how passionate he was about sharing this idea. He gave it away for free.
But did he let the researchers contact their dead loved ones?
So I'm getting into that.
Oh.
So, however, nobody is known to have replicated the results O'Neill claimed using his own Spiricom devices. So they're all like, hey, this is really cool.
They're like,
this is cool.
Hello? Nope, you can't hear me. Doesn't work.
Pretty cool, Bill, but I can't talk to him. It's not working for me. But and then he's like, really? I talk to George all the time. And they all just like kind of stare at him. Like, cool, man. I'll tell him we say hi.
Can you tell him to put so-and-so on the phone? What?
That's how you become a medium. And so O'Neill's partner, retired industrialist George Meek, attributed O'Neill's success and the inability of others to replicate it to O'Neill's mediumistic abilities, forming part of the loop that made the system work. So I think really what he was trying to say there is that he was like, hey, Bill isn't I'm calling William Bill. Bill isn't crazy. He's just he's sensitive. He's a mediumistic. He's got a sensitivity to the undead, so that's why his own device works for him.
But he should let other mediums
Conveniently,
use
it works for him.
He should let other mediums use it then.
Oh, well,
and
maybe
that could
that's
be the real test.
Okay. In 2020, Kenny Biddle, that's a great name, wrote a comprehensive article explaining the origins of the Spiricom as developed by O'Neill and Meek. He was prompted to do so by the reemergence of the device on the television series Ghost Hunters.
I just got chills.
That was a good show. Yeah, you were kind of psychic right there. You called it. He comprehensively debunked the, quote, science behind the device in both the original development and the Ghost Hunters TV episode. So that leads us finally to Frank's Ghost Box. You ready?
I don't know.
I'm just taking a breath.
Okay.
Reading a lot. Another electronic device specifically constructed in an attempt to capture EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, if I'm not mistaken, is Frank's Box, or the Ghost Box, created in 2002 by EVP enthusiast Frank Sumpton.
Frank something?
I mispronounced. EVP enthusiast Frank Sumption for supposed real-time communication with the dead. Sumption claims he received his design instructions from the spirit world. So again, he's like, they told me how to build it, which is crazy, right?
So another guy is saying that he had somebody...
he had the spirit world tell him how to build it. Maybe it was a collective effort.
I wonder if it was the same guy.
The device is described as a combination white noise generator and AM radio receiver modified to sweep back and forth through the AM band, selecting split-second snippets of sound. And if you want to hear what that sounds like, we have this right here. And to me, it's a freaky sounding machine, which that's why originally it lost its credit to me. It's like, okay, if it sounds spooky by default, I'm not sure if it's so much utility focus as it is as much as theatrics focused. So let's listen to it.
If there's any spirits here with us today, come forward and say hello.
Okay, so kind of freaky sounding, and you heard some voices pick up there because it's picking up radio snippets.
But also, like, from the videos that we've seen, it also seems like it sounds like they're like, oh, did you hear that? It said death. And it's like, what? No, it didn't. And so it's almost like you can almost make it sound like anything almost.
You
because
can
it's
perceive
like,
it.
Or so muffled. And so, like, it's like one of those things. And then once they say death and then you listen to it again, it's like, oh, I kind of did hear the word death.
Yeah.
But, like, at first, before they said it, before they put that idea in your head, I'm like, it doesn't really sound like anything. It just seems like something that you can kind of, like, force. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because it's not super clear.
Yeah, and that's what you call that other word I don't know how to pronounce right off, but pareidolia, where you see faces and shapes, and it's also the same thing whenever you are perceiving something out of something that it's not. So, like, if you look at, whenever you look at, like, wood and you start seeing, like, faces in it.
Oh, or whenever you're like, why every single time I look at my watch, it's always 11:23 or something like that.
Right.
Or you see the same number over and over again. I forgot what that's called too.
It's kind of self-fulfilling.
Yeah.
It's in this case, I think you're going to perceive what you're setting out to perceive. You're perceiving what you're expecting to perceive, so which is something freaky. Like, why don't they say, like, McDonald's chicken biscuit, something weird like that. They're always saying, like,
That's
death.
Chick-fil-A. I don't think McDonald's
Death.
has chicken biscuits.
And they'll be like, the baby, dryer, like ominous, burn, fire. It's like, what about like a really quick advertisement, like buy two get one free, or buy
What? Buy two get one free?
yeah, buy two get one free, or like a new advertisement for like a movie that's coming out, this Saturday, like just that really quick,
Yeah.
But they would interpret it like, oh, the baby died on Saturday.
Yeah.
I just got chills. Critics of the device say its effect is subjective and incapable of being replicated, and since it relies on radio noise, any meaningful response a user gets is purely coincidental or simply the result of that word I can't say, pareidolia.
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 Pareidolia. Okay, pareidolia. We'll just say that. So that's basically what it is. It's an effect of that. And now I lost my document page, so now I don't know.
Well, that was the end of it, though.
Was it? Okay. Paranormal researcher Ben Radford writes that Frank's box is a modern version of a Ouija board, which is, I think it's a cool comparison, also known as the broken radio. So that's where we ended. So that, in summation, we went through audio anomalies, weird frequencies being picked up through your phone signal or a radio, to can spirits manipulate these frequencies to communicate, and how Thomas Edison believed it was a possibility but never was able to invent it. And here we are today. We have the Frank's box, the Frank ghost box. Mm-hmm. So now the question is, you, the viewer, what do you think? What is the... I'm not sure if we answered any questions, but we explored a lot of ideas, and it was pretty fun. Mm-hmm. What do you think? Do you think spirits have any say in communicating with the living through these technologies?
I mean, I think that they could, but I don't think that they need to. I think it's more efficient and probably more effective, and they know that they can communicate in other ways. But I think it does happen through technology.
I think technology is sometimes a sensitive a way. Maybe it's it's another channel. Yeah. The only thing I have against the Frank's ghost box thing is that's to say that ghosts are in some kind of realm where they see floating frequencies like that they can like somehow perceive or manipulate. Mm-hmm. And they have to know beforehand what that radio station at that very specific second is going to say, and then like visualize for a second what that looks like. What is a ghost? How do you visualize like a ghost channeling these frequencies to create a comprehensive sentence or thing that it's trying to say. So like, is that ghost like taking like, I'm just imagining a bunch of like streams, like a bunch of streams of frequencies in the air, and it's just like pew, 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 like directing it to that.
Yeah.
You know, like what exactly is it doing, and how does it know ahead of time what it's going to say? So to me, the Frank's box thing is cool. It's very interesting, but I don't think it's what Thomas Edison would have imagined as his spirit phone.
Yeah. No, I don't really believe in that either.
And I think that's where I want to leave it. I want to leave it open to interpretation. I want more conversation about this. Let us know in the comments what you think about this. And if you've ever experienced any freaky audio anomalies. Normally on the show, we really want to take in callers and do some ghost stories or just talking about the unknown, the unexplained events in your life. So,
yeah, so if you have a freaky paranormal experience and you want to talk about it, then let us know.
Yeah, we want to have you here on the show. So email us at y.files.team@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to talk with you and connect and have you on. So I feel pretty good about this being the first episode. I'm not sure if I like came on a little strong, came out with some dense information, I basically wrote an essay about audio anomalies and Thomas Edison, but I didn't imagine this being the way we started, but I'm happy with it. So
yeah.
How do you feel?
I feel pretty good. I just want to, for our next episode, I want to do with a caller, talk to somebody.
Oh yeah, I definitely want to also. Yeah, I think that'd be really good. Oh, if you like this, leave us a review. We're going to be out on all platforms, including YouTube, obviously, iTunes, podcasts, and Spotify and Google Play, all of these places. So if there's an area for a review, let us know what you're thinking about the show so far. We really appreciate any feedback. We really want to take this thing to the next level and grow. So thanks again for tuning in today. We really appreciate you being here with us. And until next time.